You ready?
Mm-hmm.
So how long have you been out now?
I've been out for 1 month, 31 days, and it's the 6th, so 31 and 6 is 37 days.
Okay. And it's hard to adjust when you've been locked up.
It's different. It's definitely different. But every day you make a little progress. And being when I importuned and begged them to let me come home, it's so convalescent to be among my family, to be among friends. People come to visit. Every little bit heals. And last week we went to the dinner of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, all my old running buddies from the courts, and they gave me a standing ovation.
Wow.
And that was another piece of the puzzle, my old life coming back. So that was good.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about, because your own career as an activist and as a lawyer, you have witnessed in essence the death of the legal system, a functioning legal system. The legal system was always biased, especially if you were a person of color, of course, or you espoused politics that the state didn't like. But what we've seen is something, I think, much more traumatic and frightening. And maybe you could go back. I know you defended Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman, you were the lawyer. At what point, if you could trace the deterioration, what you saw happening, whether it predated 9/11, it certainly was accelerated by 9/11.
Right.
How do you see that trajectory?
Well, I think in the 70s, which is when I started practicing, was really the golden era, because we had all these wonderful decisions and expected more and more of what would be fair, how to do a lineup, what was the government have to turn over to you as material before a trial, all of those things. And of course all the racial also, the Batson decisions, all of those. And we saw them after the 70s gradually be wormed away and end up as really being empty promises, and more a case of what can the prosecution undermine and get rid of in these very strongly worded and very pro-defending cases. But I think we also saw, and this is the part that really troubles me, a death of the spirit of the bar, that the lawyers that were defending people accused of crime no longer saw it as a calling, something that you did because you were answering a higher voice, that you were, I don't want to make it into any kind of religious thing, it wasn't that, but you defended people because they were up against the mightiest organism in the universe, the governments of the United States, whether they were state or federal. And it was only you against the world when you were in there. And that, I think, is now sadly lacking. I tell you, the stories the women told me at Carswell, women who were so cruelly sold out by the lawyers that represented them.
These were on plea deals then?
Plea deals, and also, it's interesting, class and race all operate just as vibrantly when they're lawyer-client situations. And it's funny, I was talking to my doctor daughter today, and she was also saying in the medical profession as well, people just sit back and let the doctors tell them what they have to do without saying, listen, I'm doing it, but in the medical profession, clearly the male lawyer, the male judge, the authority figures that women are trained, even women who are criminals supposedly, to respect and fear. And most of them, I would say, why didn't you tell the judge this when this was happening? Why didn't you, when you gave a plea, why didn't you say, but judge, I wasn't even there. This is my boyfriend who did this. He's, I said, why didn't you say, I want a trial? I want to go to trial. I want to tell. I was afraid. I was afraid.
What do you think, what brought about that change? What forces created that shift that you talked about within the legal profession?
A lot of things. I think one big thing, and I'm not quite sure how to pigeonhole it, but is the fact that law education became so expensive that people had to mortgage their souls in order to go to law school. When I went to law school, I went to Rutgers Law School in Newark, while the smoke was still rising from in 1971, and I got a free ride. Which is the vernacular by kids for not having to pay anything, because they were anxious to have a class of more than 50% women to show that this is how it should be, and also because it was a state university and the tuitions were very low anyway. But nowadays it's in the tens of thousands, and I think when people have to mortgage their future life in order to go to get this piece of paper, then they worry so much, and they rightly so, about paying back and getting a job that allows them to pay back and still live. You know, that was not my concern. Maybe it should have been, but I didn't have that concern. I could say I'm going to, when I had applied to various places for jobs, including a couple of DA's offices, which I'm glad I didn't get a job, but I was told you should be a prosecutor. If you're a good prosecutor, then you can be a good defense lawyer. But I'm just as glad I never was. But they said things to me, like I remember Frank Hogan in New York saying to me, "We don't hire women." Just as flat as that, just as that. But, and I could decide, I could say, I'm going to open my own office. I'm going to hang out my shingle and we'll see what comes through the door. Of course, then, as recently, I had the great support of a wonderful partner.
A former boxer.
The former boxer who likes to hang out in front of the White House and make trouble for them all, hang out in a lot of places and make trouble. But, he was so totally supportive of this effort of mine. He had a motorcycle shop at that point.
Oh, really?
And the motorcycle shop was on the ground floor of this building in Greenwich Village, and mine was on the second floor. And it was very funny. Sometimes the lawyers would go to court and they'd say, but judge, her office is up above a motorcycle shop." Like, they were intimidated by that. But yes, and so I could start out on my own. I could take whatever cases
What
I
about
wanted.
Ideological groups like the Federalist Society, and how much of a role do you think they played in corrupting the legal system?
Well, I had one experience with the Federalist Society at Stanford. I was invited to be the speaker, and when we got to the motel, there was a letter from, I don't know who it was, but saying, we've decided you can't speak.
What year was that?
That was when I was first arrested, so it had to be 92. Pretty sure it was 92, the spring of, it could have been 93, but I'm pretty sure it was 92.
And the letter was signed by who?
I think it was signed by one of the deans, or the dean of the law school, or someone of that ilk. And, but I went on the campus anyway, and there was, and I'm sorry I don't remember her name, because she was very, very strong and very helpful, and the kids also, they were adamant that I was going to speak and they were going to sponsor me, and that for this particular thing the dean didn't have the right to say anything about who was going to, this was their show, etc. So I did speak, but the audience was spiked with Federalist juniors, I guess you'd call them. And
what did they do?
Well, they thought they were asking very clever questions. But of course they're asking clever questions to a trained trial attorney who had been in the business at that point for almost 30 years. And so of course I was able to parry with them, and I will say that the audience was so happy that I put them in their place. One of the questions I remember, I had once responded to a New York Times interview by saying that I thought that the, propping up the capitalist system was not a good thing to be doing, and if you were a lawyer, you should think twice before you take a job that does that, and so on and so forth. And of of course, someone had to get up and make a big speech about the capitalist system and how it, well, for that, how would any of us got here? And I'm trying to think of my very clever answer, which was something along the line of, well, you know, I sleep very well at night, and I look in the mirror in the morning, and I'm happy with myself, and I hang on 1 minute. What were you going to say? You remember the punchline?
Yes. Much more.
But you don't remember
Yes,
it.
I
Now
do.
you interrupted.
He said
That's okay.
He said he's going to go to work for the federal government.
No, he didn't say that. He said he was going to work for the capitalist system.
Okay, and your answer was there are many people around the world who have been oppressed by the capitalist
No,
system.
that wasn't it. It was
I was
better
your
than that.
favorite aunt. I would tell you.
No, that was part of it.
Okay, if I was your favorite
I
aunt.
said to him, if I was your favorite aunt, I would just have to say that you know, you're becoming part of a very ugly machine that hurts people, doesn't help them,